Welcome back into the College Football Every Game on the Board podcast, part number 3 with our 3-hole hitter, Chris Thurston, making his debut on the Every Game on the Board podcast. Follow him on Twitter at CTBet16. He's also a co-host of the Hustle Show podcast, and he does Sports Map Radio on Tuesday nights. A professional sports bettor, knows his college football. CT Bets, welcome in. How you feeling, man?
Drew Martin Betts, I'm feeling great. It was a great weekend. Had an awesome Saturday and Sunday, cashed my big plays, and it's a privilege to be on this show with you. And I appreciate you asking me to be a part of it. I've always been a fan of you doing this show. I think it's an awesome concept, a great show, and I know there's a lot of people that enjoy watching it. So really happy to be here and dive into the games.
Absolutely. We're happy to have you. A lot of people requested him. He's finally here, 7 o'clock Eastern time with the first game up. 359-360, guys. If you're new to the Every Game on the Board podcast, we just go down in rotation order. We use the Wager Talk Live odds screen and hit every single game on the board. So this is part 3 here, 359-360 down to 381-382 with Chris Thurston. Iowa and Rutgers CT bets, we get -8, -7.5 available out there. That is the Hawkeyes as the road favorite. 34.5 being the total. This total opened 35.5. It's been bet down. CT bets, interested in your thoughts on this game. Also interested in is this the lowest college football non-academy total you've ever seen?
So, Drew, it's wild that you just asked me that because I had a stat that I was going to fire off to you on that. So Dan Lifshot's actually a good friend of ours, gave me this stat last night when we were doing my Sports Map show. And this is the lowest total, 34.5 in the last 6 years in FBS. Pretty insane.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's just nuts. The lowest total in the last 6 years. So that's worth pointing out here. In regards to the game, Iowa is a team that I was pretty high on going into the year, Drew. I bet them over 7.5 wins. I thought Spencer Petras would be a lot better this year. It hasn't exactly been the case. They've been struggling on offense, although they finally scored some touchdowns last week in a much needed win, 27-0 over Nevada. They actually got the cover there as well. The Hawkeyes D, which I knew going into the year, it was going to be elite. And they've held teams to 4.3 points per game. So that's pretty good. Defense have been keeping them in a lot of games. They're 2-1 right now. Rutgers 3-0. They haven't really played anybody. I guess you could say they had a decent opener win. They beat BC, then Wagner and Temple. I haven't got to the window with this one, Drew, but I'm sticking to my Hawkeyes. I know it's scary laying a touchdown on the road with this offense, but I think Kirk Ferentz and company will have them ready to go for their Big Ten opener. So if I had to play this, I'm going to lay it on the road here in the Big Ten opener with the Hawkeyes.
All right, looking towards the favorite. I kind of like the under, guys, but it is moving down. 34 is now starting to pop up at DraftKings. Actually, 33.5 at Bet Online. This is getting ridiculous. I mean, 33.5. Also, keep in mind, guys, like each time the total goes down with a really low total, it even matters more because there's less numbers there for it to kind of move down. Hey, next game up here, CT bets. Duke and Kansas, not only a basketball kind of good matchup here. Both of these two teams look to be pretty good this season. It kicks us off 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific in Lawrence, Kansas. Jayhawks -7 in the hook at home, 66.5 the total.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy when you see Duke at Kansas and they're both 3-0 in parentheses on the bottom line. You're like, wait a second, is basketball season started yet? But this is the first time Duke and Kansas both started 3-0 for the first time in 25 years in football. It's also the first time Rock Chalk has been a road favorite at home against an FBS opponent in 6 years. Drew, KU really surprised me last week. I really like the Houston Cougars. I laid the 8.5. I gave that out as a play on my shows last week. I thought I looked like a genius right when the game started. I know you saw that. Houston got off to a nice 14 nothing start. And I give Lance Leopold a lot of credit for what he's done with this program, especially this year. He's an absolute hero down there. The Jayhawk Nation is going nuts. They got some votes, or both of these teams got some votes. I believe just left out of the top 25 in the rankings this week. But last year, the Blue Devils, they beat KU 52-33. And then they went on to not win another game the rest of the season. Eileen Rock Chalk here. I don't know how I could go against them right now. They're scoring a ton of points. 51 and a half points scored this season. And I believe that's the third highest in college football so far, Drew Martin bets. So this isn't a game I bet yet. But I'm not going to, if I was going to bet it, I'm laying the points here, Rock Chalk Jayhawk, and I'll lay the touchdown and a half here.
Man, it's crazy. Yeah, you bring up Lance Leopold. I wonder if they're going to, or if maybe they already have in just this 3-game stretch, sign him to a long-term deal, because, I mean, I would guess another team is going to come calling pretty soon. And I don't know how that Kansas football, facilities is looking, but he might take a better job if they don't, right?
For sure. I mean, what last year? Yeah, it was last year, right? When they beat Texas at home.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember this, Drew. There was nobody at the game. I remember having it on one of my screens. And I think it was the third quarter, the school sends out a tweet and then a message through the whole campus.
Remember, yeah.
If you're around not doing anything, we're about to beat Texas. The doors are wide open. You don't need a ticket. And a bunch of people came and they partied all night long after, they upset Texas for the first time in a very long time. So what Leopold's doing down there, man, it's pretty exciting to see, especially as a Big 12 fan too. Because Kansas has been the bottom feeder for football for how many years. So it's nice to see. You don't like to see one of your teams, getting blown out every single game the course of the season, especially outside of the Big 12. You know what I mean? In the non-conference game. So I'm excited for this team.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch going forward. Duke getting better as well, but -7 in the hook here towards Kansas. We get Miami of Ohio Northwestern up next. So a little Maction versus Big Ten, 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific kick here. Minus a touchdown pretty much across the board. That's the Wildcats. 49.5 being the total in this one, CT.
Yeah, Northwestern, as we all know, they lost to FCS Southern Illinois last week as a 13-point favorite here. Northwestern, they're 1-2. They've yet to win a game in the United States so far this year, Drew. They went to Ireland week 1, which I gave Northwestern out as a play on the hustle in week 0.
Nice bet.
That was a nice cash there. They won that game outright. I thought after that game, Pat Fitzgerald had things figured out. And I was excited for this Wildcats team here. They had the transfer quarterback, Ryan Helinski, in his second year, but this is kind of his first year being the starter full-time. Miami, Ohio, here's an interesting stat for you, Drew. They've lost 17 straight to the Big Ten. 17, the last 17 times they played a Big Ten team. So take that for what it's worth there. They're only averaging 289 total yards in offense. I expect Pat Fitzgerald to have the Wildcats ready to bounce back here. They get to come back in the home game here. I'll probably get to the window on this one. Here I am. Look at me. The first 3 games that we've been breaking down, I'm giving out 3 chalk as my side. But I like the Wildcats in this spot here, and I'll lay the touchdown with the Wildcats.
Next one up, 365, 366, 6 o'clock Eastern kick. Arkansas State ODU, that's Old Dominion, -4.5 to as high as -5.5, 56.5 being the total. Any interest in this one, CT bets?
I don't really have an interest in this one. I mean, just how bad Colorado is. I mean, here's a crazy one. Colorado's live, you know how the books come out with the live win totals in season.
Wait,
They're live.
Colorado?
Yeah. So Colorado's live win total in play right now is half a game, Drew. So if you were going to bet the over under for the entire year, you're either betting them to win one game, or if you're betting the under, they can't win a game for you to cash at all. So Vegas doesn't see them winning a game this year. And newsflash, it's not going to be this weekend that they get their first one, if they do get one at all. The Buffs, they're being outgained by 214 yards per game. Their coach Carl Durrell, he's been torched out there. They're lighting his name on fire for the terrible start that the Buffs are off to, 0-3. Chip Kelly and the Bruins, they're off to a 3-0 start with their high octane offense. This would either be Bruins or pass for me, Drew.
Okay, fair enough. CT bets. That was UCLA and Colorado, guys. 367, 368. The one before, Arkansas State, ODU. The Red Wolves, I don't know, plus the points. Not much on that one for me. We do have next game up, making our way down the list. 369, 370. A nightcap here, 10:15 Eastern, 7:15 Pacific. Degenerate special time slot here, CT bets. I know that might pique your interest. Wyoming, BYU, Cougars minus 21.5, up to as high as minus 22.5, 50 being the total in Provo.
Yeah, the Cowboys coming off a huge win as 17-point dogs over Air Force last week. BYU coming off a nice throttling by the Ducks to bring BYU back to reality, Drew Martin bets, after their double OT win off of my Baylor Bears. I was really excited to see that the Ducks take it to them. I was all over the Ducks last week. BYU, a little banged up, as we know. There's two starting wide receivers. They've missed the last two games. I know this game is in Provo, which is a very tough place to play. Baylor experienced that 2 weeks ago, but I think this number is a little too high, and I'm going to take my chances here with the hot Cowboys. Look for them to stay within the number here in the late night degenerate special. I'm on the Cowboys here. Give me the points.
CT bets, you got a little degenerate blood in you. You brought up your Baylor Bears and BYU game. I've never had like my favorite team play in that time slot. It's always just kind of like me just as a bet. What was that like watching Baylor like late night after a full day of, shenanigans?
I gotta say, Drew, going into the day, like waking up, I was like, oh, wow, today's going to be awesome. Full slate of college football. And then to cap things off, Baylor in the late night spot. I'm going to be up all night. And man, by the time I was struggling to stay awake for kickoff, because I enjoyed myself, Drew Martin bets, had a few Viva Seltzers while I was watching the games. And it's a long day. As you know, it's a stressful day. You're grinding out games. And it was tough. I fell in and out of sleep on the couch watching the game. And I woke up with about 8 minutes left. Blake Shapen had just thrown a bullet to Blake Sims to tie the game up. And then I watched it from then the rest of the game through double overtime, and I got back into it. I was on the edge of my seat. It was a tough one for the Bears. That place is rocking, man. I don't know if you got to see the highlights or if you saw it live.
I did. Yeah,
it looked like one of those like when Wisconsin is rocking in the all white out and all the student section jumping up and down, and Baylor was trying to go in right there. Blake Shapen looking at that students. It had to be a pretty intimidating series trying to tie the game there, but it was pretty cool. I don't really want to see Baylor tip off at 10:15 Eastern on a Saturday night going forward, Drew.
Okay, not too much more. So maybe it's a little tough to go all day. I get it when your favorite team's playing at the end. And guys, CT Bets brings up Viva Tequila Seltzer. Check it out, vivatequilaseltzer.com. It's a sponsor of The Hustle, which is going at 6 p.m. Eastern time, wherever you download your podcast at. The Hustle. Also on the Wager Talk YouTube channel as well. And if you go to vivatequilaseltzer.com and use the coupon code HUSTLE at checkout, gives you 10% off. This stuff is good, guys. Zero sugar as well, so you don't really get hung over. You can also pour a shot of tequila in it in a glass with ice and call it a loaded Viva. That's one of my favorite drinks as well. As we'll move down the list here, Hawaii and New Mexico State, 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific, 53.5 being the total. New Mexico State, the Aggies, minus 4.5-point home favorites. A doozy here, CT bets. Hawaii and New Mexico State.
A doozy. I guess that's a good way to put it. That's for sure. Drew Martin bets. This game actually got hit right away Sunday when the lines came out. It's ticked all the way up. I saw 5. There's mostly 4.5s out there now. But Drew, both these teams are god awful. I can't imagine there's going to be too many people paying attention and watching this game come 8 Eastern Saturday night. This would be a game where if it was midnight tip off and I was having a Saturday and I was up and not tired, I'd look to Drew Martin bets for the late night edge there. If you need to play this game, which I won't be, it's worth noting that Hawaii wins at a 39% clip on the road since 2018, which is pretty terrible. So this would be New Mexico State at home laying the points or pass for me, Drew. I don't know if you had anything on that. I know sometimes you have a few edges on the Hawaii, the Rainbow games.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm more interested in betting them when they're in that midnight Eastern slot, like last game on the board, get back special. But right. I don't know. I'd have to look a little bit more into it. I mean, New Mexico State isn't very good. Neither is Hawaii. So that's what makes it really difficult. And another late night special here, we got the next game up, Utah and Arizona State. Of course, Herm Edwards being showed the door. We find change, which as a sports bettor is always good with that. 10:30 Eastern, Utes at the Sun Devils. However, the ultimate equalizer here, CT bets, minus 15. That's what you got to lay with the Utes. 54 the total in Tempe.
Yeah, Drew Martin bet. So if you don't mind, I'm gonna. This is a game I really like a lot, and I bet it right before we started this show. So I got a little bit on this one. I bet this. You shop around. I got the Sun Devils plus 15.5. Right before you and I went live here. All the action coming in on the Utes here, which comes as no surprise. Herm Edwards, like you just said, he's out as the Sun Devils coach after not only winning enough games, but getting them dragged into a scandal. Utah, they haven't won in Tempe in quite some time, since 1981. As a matter of fact, Utah has won once in Tempe since 1981. They're 1-9 outright in Tempe in their last 10, and they're 4-15 lifetime in Tempe. Sean Guano, I think that's how you pronounce it, who is the running backs coach, takes over as the interim head coach after Herm was fired after last week's 30-21 home loss against Eastern Michigan. He came out, he made a statement that his focus is the next 9 games and making sure that he's taking care of these kids. Utah, they just had an unfortunate blow last week. They lose their running back, Chris Curry, in their win over San Diego State. He's done for the year. That will be a little bit of a blow to Utah. The Sun Devils quarterback, who we all know, Florida transfer Emory Jones, he hasn't thrown a pick all year in 74 attempts. He's completed 60.8% of his passes for 557 and 2 TDs. I like Emory Jones. I think he's the right guy for the job here. And here's a key factor for you, Drew. Utah, they really, really struggle to play well in the heat. This seems like a game that the kids in the Sun Devil uniform are going to get up for. The place will be rocking. I always remember those games late night, ESPN or ESPN2. The Sun Devils seem to always be catching double digits, and they win these games outright, man. I think this is a live dog, and I look for the Sun Devils to stay within the number here. And I also think that there's a chance they could knock the Utes off here and come as a big surprise this weekend, Drew Martin bets. So I played the Sun Devils as a pretty large play for myself.
All right, a little forks up action in the Pac-12, staying in the Conference of Champions, 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific kick, 375, 376 up next, Trojans and Beavers. That's USC at Oregon State. We're seeing USC -6, -7-point road favorites, 71 being the total. I don't know. This feels a little trappy. I mean, why isn't USC like -10? It seems like everybody loves them. What are you thinking here, CT bets?
I'm thinking the same way you are, Drew Martin Betts. This seems a little fishy here. Lincoln Riley, Kalen Williams off to a pretty good start, 3-0 start. They have themselves ranked 7th in the polls. He gets all the transfers in here. But Drew, the Beavers, man, they've been pretty impressive so far this year themselves. Had themselves a big win week 1 over Boise State, over the Broncos. And Oregon State, not sure if you remember this, they went to LA last year. And the Trojans were double-digit favorites, and they knocked off the Trojans, the Beavs, last year. So I think that this is a good spot for the Beavs to maybe catch Lincoln Riley a little off guard this Saturday night. And I'm going to be taking the points Saturday night here. Give me the Beav at home to get the job done and stay within the number here.
Okay, looks like 6.5. There is a +7 out there at Caesars on the Beavers at home. We got in Corvallis, Toledo, San Diego State up next, 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific kick here. Rockets -3-point road favorites, 45.5 being the total in San Diego.
This is a game, Drew, that I had really no opinion on. But as I was doing, our picks last night with Dan Lifshatz on my Sports Map show, which you were on last night, he gave out San Diego State as a pretty big play. So I took a few stats down that he gave out when he gave the pick. So no play for me, but Dan Lifshatz all over the Aztecs +3. Toledo coming off a huge loss to the Buckeyes last week. Dan told me that teams that lose by 50+ points the following week since 2018 against FBS opponents are 0-6 against the spread. So that would come into play here with Toledo as they got blown out last week. And he also noted the Aztecs also get back their starting quarterback, Braxton Burmeister, the Virginia Tech transfer. He missed last week's game. So Dan likes him. He's an upgrade coming back, starting for them this weekend. He likes San Diego State plus the points here.
Okay, quarterback back. Yeah, I agree with Dan. He's a pretty good quarterback at Virginia Tech, making the transfer out to San Diego. We got 2 games left here, guys. Talking with Chris Thurston at CTBet16 on Twitter. Check him out at the Hustle Show podcast. That's the show coming up at 6 o'clock Eastern time on the Wager Talk YouTube channel. Also on Twitter at the Hustle Show podcast and the Hustle Show pod, excuse me. But yeah, 2 games left here, guys. Oregon, Washington State up next, 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific, -6.5. That's the Ducks on the road after that big win we just talked about earlier in the show over BYU. CT bets 57.5 being the total. So now we get the Ducks -6.5. Washington State. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, the Ducks, like we talked about, that was nice last weekend. Big play for me. So the Ducks will be flying high after smashing BYU last week. Now they have to go to Wazoo, and it's not exactly an easy place to play, and it's not really an ideal spot for the Ducks. The Ducks have lost at Washington State 3 times when they were the higher-ranked team since 2002, most recently back in 2018. Washington State, they've been pretty impressive thus far themselves. They're off to a nice 3-0 start, which includes a nice win at Big Ten Wisconsin. Oregon is a team I bet over an 8.5 wins before the year. So I'm hoping Bo Nix and Dan Lanning can get in and out and grind out a win here in Wazoo. If I was playing this game, it just screams Washington State. And I'd grab the TD at home with the Cougs here on Saturday night. Drew Martin bets.
A little home dog action there with the Cougars. We got last game here, staying in the Pac-12. Big West Coast part here for part number 3 with CT bets. We get Arizona, California up next. 2:30 Pacific kick in this one. 50 being the total. The Golden Bears -3 in Berkeley.
Yeah, Drew, it's funny that you and I haven't talked about this kid, the quarterback for Arizona, because I know you pretty well. You and I are pretty good friends, and this screams your kind of player. The quarterback, Jaden DeLauro.
Yeah.
Oh, he is impressive, man. Transferred in from Washington State. He's so exciting and explosive to watch. I've had a ball watching him. A lot of people were really down on this Arizona team going into this year. I didn't really know what to expect from him. Both teams, they come in at 2-1. Cal gave ND a little run for their money last week, trying to upset the Irish, falling short. Arizona, on the other hand, they've doubled up their win total, Drew Martin Pets, from last season. Their only win last year was actually a 10-3 win over Cal. Cal was shorthanded last year. They're back to full strength. But I love this kid, Jaden DeLauro. He could run. He could pass the ball. Cal's only averaging 23.7 points a game. On the other hand, the Wildcats have scored more than 30 points twice this season. They could score here. If I get to the window, I'll be on the Cats here getting the points. It's either Arizona as the road dog here for me or no play at all, Drew.
Yeah, DeLauro, I like him. He was the freshman Pac-12 player of the year last year, and then he transferred. It kind of caught my eye, like, what the heck's going on here? That's why I was kind of had Arizona circled as bet on, and sure enough, right out the gate, they beat San Diego State in their opening. But they've kind of had a tough schedule, including last week against North Dakota State. So
yeah, they grinded out that win.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd look to bet on them more so than not, but no, good point in terms of looking to bet on the Cats over the Bears. Guys, that does it for this segment. Part number 3 of the Every Game on the Board podcast at CTBet16 on Twitter. His name's Chris Thurston. He does Sports Map Radio Tuesday nights. Look out for that. He does the Hustle podcast as well. He knows Viva Tequila Seltzer. Guys, go to vivatequilaseltzer.com. Use the coupon code HUSTLE at checkout. Takes 10% off of the best seltzer out there. It's tequila seltzer too, so you don't really get hungover. No sugar. CT Bets, we got do you have a most confident play here of this section?
Yeah, it's Arizona State in Tempe on Saturday night. I really like that spot, Drew. It just, I like taking those teams where it didn't work out last week. I thought it might have been a nice spot for Nebraska, but they have bigger problems than just Scott Frost, right? But I really think that the Sun Devils will be up for this game. The Sun Devils have a lot of talent, and I just think that number's too high, Drew. Those Utah Utes, they do not play well in the heat, and I think it's going to be a really tough game for them. So most confident play would be Arizona State Sun Devils. Grab those points, man.
Yeah. Degenerate special, 10:30 Eastern time in Tempe. Arizona State plus 16 right now. CT Bets, any final thoughts here, man? Your first appearance. We'll have them on later in the season, guys. But any final thoughts before we shut this down?
Final thoughts. Like I said at the beginning of the show, Drew, I think this show's awesome that you do it and was glad to be a part of it. Definitely want to be a part of it down the line here in the future. It's sad that we're already on to what is it? Week 4 of college right now and week 3 of NFL. It just goes by too fast. But we're in the middle of it right now. So this is the time to shine, which I love football the best. I do pretty well on it. And watch us 6 p.m. on The Hustle. Myself, awesome, man. You, Adam Trigger, and Kelly Stewart. We'll be back.
Yeah, we'll be right back, guys. That's 6 o'clock Eastern time. Stay tuned for that. Huge shout out to CT Bet16 on Twitter. Guys, we'll be right back. Thanks for tuning in. Please smash that like button.